Hey everyone, welcome back to the Wealth Preservation Podcast. We are here again with Laura Meier out of Newport Beach, estate planning and marketing extraordinaire and author and mother of 4 kids, and just takes a mere 36 hours in a day and she gets it all done. Right, Laura?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, awesome. And I'm also joined by my co-host, as always, Josh Saunders. Josh, how is it going in Tennessee?
It is good here in Tennessee. It's a sunny day. It's supposed to rain the rest of the week, but today is gorgeous. So no fires here. But no, we're excited to have Laura on and really talk about how her and her husband really built their business and their marketing techniques and what they did and what worked and what didn't work and what they had to tweak and what they didn't. So we're excited about getting into this.
Perfect.
Yes.
So Laura, real quick, so for our listeners, do you want to do like maybe a 90-second recap of just what the Meyer Law Firm is, where you guys are located, and what really, how you guys got started?
Oh, sure. So the Meyer Law Firm is in Newport Beach, California, so in Southern California, in like a coastal town. And it was started by me from my kitchen table after leaving big law firm life behind while we were, our kids were toddlers then. And then Josh joined up a year or 2 later from leaving his law firm job behind. And basically what we do is we help people face and navigate life events, difficult ones. And we help them set up the legal planning they need to make sure that everything they have, everyone they love would be taken care of if they, were to get hurt or to pass away.
Yeah. Which navigating the legal landscape there is no small thing, right? I think some people just assume like, hey, if anything happens to me, I've got a lot of loved ones. I'm sure they'll just hash it out and it'll be fine, right? And it's like, nope. Probate court does not say, well, who liked the most of your Facebook photos? They get the kids, right? I mean, it's a pretty intense process.
It's a very overwhelming and convoluting process. And especially the more dependence you have on you or the younger you are, it's even more complicated. And so it is definitely something, though, that can be easy. We tell people if they plan in advance. Well, easy meaning easy as it can be for a terrible time. Mm-hmm. But, it really, you can navigate it, plan for it. If you do it on this end of the equation before something happens, it's so much easier versus waiting.
Yeah.
Hey, Laura, real quick, do you have a quick story of a kind of disaster? You can obviously keep names and exact details out, but of a disaster story of a family that didn't plan?
Yeah, I have quite a few. In fact, I'll just tell you a call I got a couple weeks ago where someone had called about their sibling who got sick and had a stroke. And basically, because this sibling didn't have any legal documents in place, no one in the family could make medical decisions for them, even put him in a home. No one could pay his bills because he was going to eventually have to come home to his home, which was on an upstairs level. They couldn't even get contractors to build things to even make it suitable for him. And so here this family was desperately wanting to help their sibling, and they couldn't. And really at that point, what they're facing is having to go into court and get court powers and all these delays. It's very costly. Plus, we don't know what his wishes are, in terms of who he would have even wanted to be taking the lead and managing that. And that can create, too, a liability for your family. Let's say you want to help them and you start doing things and then they come out of their situation like, whoa, you sold my home while I was, recovering from a stroke. Like, I didn't give you permission to do that. So it's just very complicated. And that would be a prime example of how frustrating it is. On top of the emotional, they were feeling devastated about the medical situation.
Yeah. And I mean, there's, I think there's also a sense that, I think people will naturally gravitate towards like, hey, if I have good intentions and I honestly want to help, things will get done. Right. And there's the like, hey, I'm sure you hear a lot like, oh, it shouldn't be this difficult. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to say you're wrong, but it is this difficult. Right. If there's nothing set up, it is this difficult.
Right. I mean, I just remember traveling on a trip with my extended family, like my parents and siblings and their kids, and just organizing where we were going to go to dinner. You would have thought that we were like starting a country. Everybody had an opinion, you know, everybody, like no one could accommodate us. I mean, it was just a mess. And I thought, yeah, this is why I'm so glad my parents have an estate plan because this
Yeah.
would be a disaster. So,
Yeah, Laura, how many times did you get the, oh, I don't care, or I don't care. Okay, we're going to go here. No, I don't like that.
yeah, I'm probably the difficult one. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I always want to do something a little bit better. And the group's like, come on, chill out. Stop being so Newport on us. Anyway.
Now, I will say, you know, if I had to make decisions for my at least my older brother, I absolutely would sell his house and all of his belongings so that he just woke up to it. Would be the funniest prank ever, I think. Like, hey Nathan, while you're out,
sell everything.
Your house is gone. And by the way, here's the keys to your pink Prius. Have fun.
Yeah, and you set his wife up with somebody else.
It's like I just So anyway, and he listens to the show, so I'm sure he'll text me in I don't know, about 6 weeks. So when he hears this,
there you go.
Awesome. Well, we really want to get into the marketing side of things, right? And because you've written a book, you've really put yourself out there, and it's not like you're an attorney, you're a mom, right? You're all these things, so you're not a professional marketer, but you've done a really good job marketing. So that's got to be a tough balance. We really want to dive into that. So real quick, what, in your opinion, why do you think, or do you even think entrepreneurs overlook the marketing side and don't focus enough time there?
Well, I mean, why do they do it? I mean, it could be for a number of reasons. I think what's challenging is just it can be overwhelming to wear the business owner hat, to work in the business, and then to also be marketing on top of your personal life. So those, it is not easy when you are in that role as an entrepreneur. And I think that the goal is to get to a place where you have a good team in place that is helping you with these different areas and you're really just managing it. But we all know that like there's that spot, when you're beginning to when you can get there. Because when I started out, it was just me at my kitchen table and I was making my own marketing flyers. And then now on this end, like I'm checking in with who I have marketing and things like that. But I have a whole team now in place to help with that. And so it was a, gradual process that I've been on that journey myself. But certainly in the beginning, it was overwhelming because usually when you're an entrepreneur, you were originally kind of good at a skill or something, and then you're trying to turn it into a business, and you're not necessarily good at running a business or being a marketer or being a salesperson, and it's a learned new skill. And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs naturally have those skills. They're there and you can develop them. But it's definitely something that when you're starting out, you really want to get in that mindset that you're not just working in your business. You are going to be doing marketing. You are going to be working on the business. You are going to have your personal life, and to understand how to wear all those hats.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Laura, kind of, what was that initial? You're like, okay, we're starting this new law firm. What were those kind of first steps, and what were the things that you thought were like, oh, this will be a great idea, and it wasn't, or you're like, oh, I don't know if this will work, and it did, and kind of, where did you kind of start that process of learning the marketing piece?
Well, I originally thought when I started my firm that, oh, I know a lot of people, they all say they need an estate plan, so everybody will use me. And that's just not the case. And we might have talked about that on the last podcast a little bit, but, people, yes, some of them will, but most of your clients are going to, eventually need to come from people who don't know you because, just your network is not a sustainable business. So that was something that I realized I was going to have to start marketing. And I remember, thinking just because you create something that is good from a marketing standpoint, you can have the best flyer in the world, but how is it getting out there? And how many times are you touching that potential client? And so what I kind of learned is that marketing usually isn't like a one-time thing. And I tell people, think of marketing kind of like dating, because typically you're not I mean, I'm sure this has happened to people, but you don't typically go to the first date and you're like, wow, I'm going to marry this guy. And he's like, oh, at the end of the day, like, check, please. Oh, and here's a big diamond. It doesn't work like that. There's usually like a long period in between. And so it's just like that with marketing. Like, usually, don't expect that quick, this will just work automatically, especially if you're in a service industry, where usually people need to trust you more and things like that. Like if they're buying an ice cream cone, like, I don't I guess I want to trust that it was like, made somewhere clean or whatever. But usually you don't have that long vetting, like, oh, where did this guy go to school who's making this ice cream cone? It's not usually that intense. But with a service business, especially, there's a lot of moving parts, and like one flyer alone usually isn't going to do it for someone to really trust you and hand over, something like their finance.
Marketing is like dating, which is probably why I'm not a huge fan of marketing. There we go. That explains a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it should be exciting to you then, because you guys, we're all married, so we don't get to date. So we should love marketing.
Oh man, I would not want to go back to dating.
I hope Erica listens to this episode, Mark. I hope she does.
She doesn't listen to my podcast. She does some of the editing. So by the time it goes like to air, she's like, I've listened to it enough.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't even think Josh has read my book. So there we go.
We're gonna have to press him on that. Be like, hey, Josh, we've read your wife's book. You haven't. I don't know. Just
Oh, I guess I should clarify too. My Josh Meier, not Josh Sanders.
Yes.
Hopefully, Josh, you read my book a little bit, but
yes, I have. Yes. So you're kind of starting the marketing piece, and what was your first avenue that you tried? You're like, okay, so all my friends and family aren't going to do it. What was next?
Well, I got a flyer in the mail. Someone had targeted me for marketing, a marketing company. And it was a really great piece that they sent, basically like, oh, you're really good at what you do, but you're burnout, you're tired, you want to know how to get clients. And so I actually started to sign up and start using marketing programs. And the thing I want to caution people about marketing programs is, well, those guys are really good at marketing. Right? So they're good at marketing to you, but are they going to be good at marketing what you do to somebody else? And the reason this particular marketing program worked, and it's called Personal Family Lawyer, and Alexis Neely, she had founded it. And the reason this was so successful is because she had done marketing for her own estate planning law firm in Los Angeles, and now was selling basically a lot of the marketing things that she did to build her practice. So she knew exactly kind of what I was doing in the mechanics of an estate planning law firm. And so that is something that, her program was super helpful. What I will say is a lot of marketing programs, if they don't regularly market like your type of business, it is trickier. There's more trial and error, especially if you're in a service business like finance or law or accounting or something like that. And so that's something I would definitely advise is whenever I talk to a marketing company, because I use different ones for different things, is I want to know, have they specifically done this before? Like, for example, Facebook ads. Have they specifically run Facebook ads for law firms who are trying to get people to a workshop? And a lot of times they'll say like, oh, well, we could do that or this, but they haven't done that before. And that's where I feel like I usually don't get the best return. And now I've wised up enough on this end to know, like, okay, that's probably not going to just work the way we'd hope. But usually, if you could find someone that has done what you do and marketed it well, that's going to be a good indicator.
Yeah. Which I think also kind of goes back to, because wanting to outsource some of the marketing stuff, to free up time, and especially since it is, a full-time thing. But also you want your branding and your marketing to be authentic to you, which typically takes your touch, right? And so how have you basically done like quality control or ensured that, hey, if someone's doing my marketing, I'm not comfortable just handing the keys over to my reputation and my branding, right? I want to
Yeah.
make sure that it's a lease and there's terms and conditions and they're following that. I'm not just like, hey, go ahead, take my name
Yeah.
and drive.
There's different theories on that because if you've read the book, I think it's called like the No BS Marketing, blah blah blah. It's a super super long title. We'll have to look it up.
Very memorable.
But but like their approach was like, I think the guy who wrote the book, and I hope I'm getting the book right, but he was like, I was embarrassed to show my wife my marketing because it was like the red prints and it was like just like the total tacky, but it worked, right? And they claim that that method works, and basically like divorce yourself from that, and if it brings in your clients, then you're making tons of money and great. And they think that too many times entrepreneurs, like, we get in our own way with marketing. And that's kind of more of like my husband is more like that. He doesn't necessarily put his heart and soul into marketing, whereas for me, I feel like I'm putting myself out there, and so I am more on the opposite end of the spectrum, where I want it to be more authentic, sincere, and I want it to be a good reflection, like, of our firm and us as people. So I say that because, like, there's different philosophies and different things that will work. But for me, like, I personally feel like whatever you put out there, whether it's your product or your marketing, that it should be a sincere and good reflection of who you are. And so there's a fine line though, because when you're working with outside companies, you can tweak certain things, but what you want to be careful about is, sometimes when I work with our marketing companies and say, okay, I want to tweak this, they'll say, no, Laura, because when you change that word, that's a key Google search word. And if we don't have that, people aren't going to find you. So you do need to go into it with the mindset of not just, hey, I want this to be a good reflection of me, but it also needs to convert to clients. And you need to make sure that you have those buzzwords and formulas in there as well. And I think you can find a good blend. But we have had projects where we spent way too much time saying, well, we wanted the sky bluer or whatever, and it just got in the way of releasing what we needed to get people in quicker. So we've tried to learn from that too, of not letting ourselves get too much in the way either of marketing.
So kind of talk about being authentic and kind of what that means to you and the firm. Like, how did you kind of develop that and go from there?
Sure. And so initially, we did go after people where we thought we would be kind of unique to them. We went after families with young children, and the idea was that we had young children. I mean, they're getting a little bigger now, but the idea was, hey, and I will tell you, at my big law firm job, I was doing a different type of law. I was a city attorney, and being a mother, it was almost like a negative in that role. And that is, and a lot has changed since then, but that was my experience at the time. Whereas when I started my law firm, I thought, well, I am a mom, and so I want to use that to my benefit. And so I'm going to choose an area of law where people would actually prefer that I am a parent like them and could understand like how difficult it might be for them to name guardians or something like that. And so I did initially, when I started the firm, try and embrace a clientele and go after a clientele that would find me very relatable, and where I felt like I had not just the legal insights that they needed, but also the personal insights for them to have a good experience. Since then, obviously our firm has expanded so much, and we help people at all stages of life. And we fortunately we do get a lot of people now through referrals, and they tend to be similar to the clients that we initially sought out. So I will say most of the people who are attracted to our law firm are very family oriented. They do want to do what's right. They have a philanthropic heart in a sense, and they have good family dynamics. And it's not always the case, and we help people with, certainly if things aren't ideal. But I will say that by focusing on initially who we really wanted, those are the type of clients that's now magnified to attract.
Yeah. And real quick, if anyone wants the full name of the book that Laura, you can tell me if this is the book. No BS Direct Marketing, the ultimate no holds bar kick butt, take no prisoners, direct marketing for non-direct marketing businesses. which
Okay, and so
is
I'm
quite a
pretty sure
mouthful.
that's the book. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the book about the, just is the cover real loud?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So I think that's probably the right one.
Woo. Well,
How did you not remember that, Laura? You should have been able to remember
I
that.
know. Should have
that that
rattled
that
it
is
off.
that would be an expensive answer on Wheel of
Yeah.
Fortune. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, so also, because you built a brand, right? You built a niche and who you wanted to attract. From a marketing perspective, though, I think there's, some people would argue, hey, marketing brings in, there's kind of a back and forth between good services will drive traffic in, good products and services drive traffic in, and some people say, hey, good marketing drives traffic in. And I think I think a good example is some people would be like, hey, hopefully they don't come after us, right? But Coors, right, not known for the best beer, but they have really good marketing, right? So do they focus on the beer or the marketing, right? And I think some people struggle with that internally with like, hey, we'll just take care of the products and services. We just got to get clients in the door. And some people say, hey, I'm going to make sure that the products and services are perfect, and then people will just naturally come. I guess where do you fall on that spectrum?
I think it's a combination of both. And again, if you go back to the dating analogy, you can have the most handsome, successful brother-in-law in the world, but if he never comes out of his office to go on a date, he's not going to be meeting people. So it's just you want to be marketable. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
always key, right? Is because good word travels fast, but so does, bad word, right? And it just takes bad reviews and then there you go. So you want to do great work, and you want people who work with you to want to tell people, but the reality is that's usually just not even enough. Like they say, like most people, it takes like 7 to 12 touches before they'd even use you or buy from you. So if one friend says like, "Oh, the Meyer Law Firm was great," that's usually not enough to just make someone come in and use us. They need to also be seeing it and hearing it from other places as well, and then it's just their own timing. You can have a great service, but if somebody doesn't need you at that moment, they're not going to come in. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. Like you could be a great taco shop, but if I don't feel like the taco, like I'm not going to go there that day for dinner, right? So you do want to do good work, but you also need to be attracting people that might, not necessarily know you yet or your reputation or someone who's worked with you. So I do think it's an equal kind of balance.
Yeah.
So, Laura, can you kind of go over a couple of things that you started doing marketing wise that started to work, that worked for a while, and then now they either stopped working or you're like, hey, we're going to keep doing that, and how's that kind of changed since you started the firm, the marketing approach and techniques? So obviously, the world's changing pretty fast on the
Mm-hmm.
marketing front.
Sure. And so, I think, and, initially what I did to bring in a lot of clients when I was starting the firm is I did a lot of public speaking um, at events. And so, and I continue to do that where, it started out, I was speaking at preschools about estate planning to parents. And, before COVID ended, I was speaking at Fortune 500 companies.
Mm-hmm.
So I had kind of worked my way up, if you will, into the type of places that I was speaking into what crowds. Well, COVID hit and I'm not speaking at all in person, and I'm doing things virtually through webinars, but it's a different setup, it's a different conversion to people using you. It's different. So, had I just relied on my public speaking to bring in clients, I'd be in a lot of trouble. And so what I have learned over the years is you can have like the best marketing campaign and the best way to do things, but if the environment changes, it can stop and dry up. And that's why you do need multiple different channels. And I call it, I said last time, multiple buckets to make it
Make it
rain.
rain.
Yes,
And
I
so,
love it.
yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, for my specific industry, I'm not going out there and speaking right now because of COVID and things aren't in person. But it happened to be that just the environment we're in, I always joke, I'm letting CNN do my marketing for me because they're going on every day telling people you might die, you might get sick, the world is ending. And so naturally, people are just calling me who's doing their estate planning. And so in that case, my reputation and having it too, like positive online reviews, people are already searching out what I'm doing and needing it just because of the environment I'm in. And that's where the fact that we've done great work and have such a good reputation, it all kind of came together.
Yeah. Now, because things are always changing, and I think entrepreneurs and just some people naturally are just less patient than others. So what's kind of your filter or things that you monitor to just say, hey, this either needs more time or it's we're just in a slump. It's okay, keep going. Versus identifying, hey, this is dead, right? We're not going to revive this. The phone book ad, like we can scrap it.
Yeah. Well, again, I think, before you pick a marketing strategy, you have to go in and know what results to expect and why. So you shouldn't go into something thinking like, oh, it might get me a client, it might not. You should be fairly confident that this method will work and why, and you need to be able to objectively evaluate that marketing campaign and if it's working. So I guess, for example, public speaking, I remember I would speak all the time. And I remember I went to one event and like nobody wanted to sign up after. And that was very weird. So I didn't go and abandon at that moment public speaking because it had worked for me. I knew that something had happened and I needed to tweak something. So in that case, I got feedback. And it was something so simple, but I didn't, at the end of my presentation, recap where people were right now without planning versus planning. And so I didn't simplify it for people at the end. And I also didn't give a strong call to action. So they were confused. And many of them actually trickled in, later on. But I could tell that there needed to be a tweak. Something went wrong. And it had worked before. It didn't work this time. Why? So that would be an example of like, good thing I didn't just say, oh, it didn't work this time. I'm done doing that. Then you can have other marketing campaigns and you're putting in the time and they've never worked. And you're tweaking and, you usually in those moments, if it's not working and why, something has gone wrong that could potentially be tweaked to be fixed. Or maybe you made assumptions with that marketing campaign that wasn't the case. It didn't happen. And so like you might have assumed people would come to a free workshop but that's just wasn't the case. Mm-hmm. And again, before you commit to any marketing strategy, you really want to know if it has worked for somebody else who's done this before and how they made it work. That's the best indicator. And then you being able to objectively evaluate the result.
Yeah.
And there's one more thing I want to add to that, because this is always tricky. It's hard when you do put your heart and soul into something to get honest feedback from others on what's going wrong. And, if we could all get to that place where we could just take it, and just say like, hey, tell me why. Mm-hmm. That's really where growth is, because when you're in something, it's really hard for you to see it. You're invested in it. You're subjective. It's usually pretty easy for outside people to say it, to be like, oh, well, I didn't use that because I didn't like the price, or I didn't use, I didn't want to keep listening to that podcast because they only talk about themselves, so usually if you could solicit feedback, honest feedback, that is helpful. And so it is a good idea to be asking people that will be honest with you, which is always the hardest part about, well, what didn't work on this flyer, or what did work, or what about this special we offered? Why didn't you want it? What was the problem?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Laura, to get a little granular now, we always like to give our listeners, some actionable tips. Obviously, these are industry specific and firm specific, but what is the Meyer firm doing right now? Obviously, you have your book. Are you doing Facebook ads, email marketing? Kind of what's working for you guys right now?
Well, again, being in, running an estate planning law firm during COVID is working for us. I mean, I hate to say it, right? And we don't want COVID in the world, but that's just the reality. Is I just happen to be in a business right now where everybody wants to use us because of the outside environment. And
Mhm.
I will tell you, I was thinking, well, when COVID's ending, what do we need to do to get back out there? And now I'm realizing everybody's trying to come to us because they're afraid of Biden tax cuts. So I do happen to be in an industry that is very influenced by what's happening in the outside world. And that's what drives a lot of people to us. That being said, why are they picking me then over somebody else who does what I do? And, one of the main things I will say is that your online presence and reviews matter. You would be shocked how many people, even if they are referred to you by trusted advisors or clients, they usually always independently will research you and look at what other people's experiences are with you. That's not just true for law firms, it's true if you have a restaurant. You guys know how many times before you go to a restaurant that someone says, "Oh, this is really great," you look them up on Yelp. And then you're like, well, that's why I'm going to go to this specific, Mexican restaurant over a different one. So I do think that's super important is your online reviews and your reputation. And then what else did you want me to tell you? Specific things that we're doing right now in
Yeah, we're
terms of
doing
marketing?
email marketing, Facebook ads, or
Yeah.
LinkedIn, or
Yeah.
public speaking, your book.
Yeah, so certainly my books, I've written two books. This last one was I call like the real deal because it was with Penguin Random House and Diversion Books. And I do a lot of news appearances around the book. But really, those things like a book and news appearances and things like that, those don't lead to like an immediate conversion of a client. It's good for building my reputation and my credibility, but it doesn't necessarily bring in an immediate client. And that's something I want people to understand is you might be doing marketing things like that. You can't expect though that that's what's going to convert. You need to be looking, if you need clients, like you need to be looking at the things that bring in an immediate client and an immediate result. And I'll tell you, like right now for me, just because of the environment I'm in, I'm not having to engage in, I just don't need to do that right now. But there have been times when I need to do that. And typically that's been when I've done public speaking, because I know that when I speak, I mean, the message sells itself. I could be up there with a bag over my head talking about something else, and people are like, estate plan, somebody's here. I need that. Boom, I want to do this.
Yeah.
But so that's something that has always worked well for me is just being with people and making it convenient for them to have access to me and to understand what they need to do to protect their family. That's usually more immediate. And then we have done Facebook ads and things like that. Keep in mind though, when you're going out to the general public, you are attracting the general public. And so that's going to be require more weeding out to find the clients that are yours. And some people don't care, right? If you're selling ice cream, you're going to sell ice cream to whoever you want. But if, or, everybody, you don't care, right? It's such a quick
Mhm.
transaction and they're gone. When you are a service professional like me who makes a lifelong commitment to being somebody's family trust attorney, well, obviously I'm going to be a lot more selective about what type of clients we're bringing kind of in house and who we're serving for life. So a lot of it just depends on the type of product you have and what the ongoing relationship will be.
Mm-hmm. And real quick, because you had mentioned going on TV and building reputation. I someone recently was like, oh, I went on 2 podcasts and nothing came of it, so I just quit being on podcasts, right? And so I guess what would you tell entrepreneurs who do need to who do need to build a relationship or build a reputation of like, hey, it doesn't matter if you're getting phone calls right after that. Like, here's I guess kind of the mindset of what it takes to build a reputation, and here's how long you got to be doing this.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the key. What you kind of just said is, when you are doing something like a podcast or a book or TV, are you going into it with the idea that this is a marketing campaign that's going to bring you an immediate client, or are you building your reputation so when you are marketing, they're now looking at you and they're like, they have a great reputation. And I think sometimes that's the challenge is you go into something thinking, well, if I'm, in front of everyone, like I went on KCAL, which is like, number two in the country for news, right? It's the number two market. LA's huge. I'm on LA TV. I'm talking to everybody out there. Well, nobody called my office that afternoon and said, I just watched you on, KCAL and I want to actually convert and become your client, right? Versus I could go into a little preschool with 10 parents and then after I speak, 7 of them want to be my client. And so that's why, again, I think you have to understand, like, when you look at the different platforms, like if it's a podcast or whatever, go into it, but know your purpose and why, and know what to expect in return. Again, like dating, if you're going on a great first date, if you come out of it and you're upset because they didn't ask you to marry them, which is like a conversion, right, with a client, well, maybe your expectations were a little bit off of what that was all about. So I think that's the main thing is you should be putting yourself out there in different avenues and you should be selective about your time, but just know the purpose going into it. So you don't, feel like your expectations weren't met and then you give up on something that maybe really was a good idea. Because like, here's another example. Going on KCAL maybe didn't get me a client right away. And that wasn't my purpose in doing it. And I'm sure it sold books, but what it did do is it got the attention of some very big owners of companies who said, wow, how did you get all that time on KCAL? I saw you on KCAL and I saw that you speak at companies. So, it's not like an immediate thing, but it definitely was helpful to that bigger goal I have of, I like to speak in public and things like that. So just know that going into it. But you do need to also know when to jump ship when something's not working for you, because we only have so much time and we only have so many marketing dollars. So when you do find something that's working versus not, you do want to put a lot of your time and resources into what's working.
Yeah. Not to mention with some of that reputation stuff. I mean, what doesn't sound great is if you say, hey, if you Google me and go to the 10th page, I'm there, right? Like climbing up that rank. I mean, those are some of the things that you have to do. So
yeah, and that's part of it. You have to do it. Like you said, you have to be on the internet these days. You have to have a strong presence online. You just do.
Well, all I heard for a marketing plan was become a estate planning attorney, create worldwide pandemic, make money. That's what I heard. That's the business plan.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not making light. Sorry.
Yeah,
maybe it's too early. Maybe
and
too
I
soon.
didn't. Yeah, it's too soon. But I think for a lot of people, my kids haven't gone back to school yet, so it's too soon for me. But So remember, when you look at market, like when you work with marketing companies, when they create your strategy, they do look at, well, what's your unique selling point? Who's your ideal client? But another factor they look at is what is the general trend out there to ride that wave. And so that's something, there are different components with marketing, and you'll learn them when you work with marketing companies. They'll show you that. But you want to make sure all of that is in order and that you're clear about that. That usually helps with whatever the strategy is that you're doing.
So that's a good thing to bring in to this episode as well, is just there's the being authentic, there's outsourcing but not outsourcing your personality, there's all that. So at what how do trends fit into it as well? Like how have you guys just been constantly monitoring the trends and then noticing, hey, this trend is ending and this one's coming up, we need to shift gears?
Well, a lot of that is, just living in the real world and, being a parent out there with other parents too, and just, paying attention to those things too. I want to say something though about riding the wave of trends, because it can become to me very, I don't think unauthentic's the word. what is the right word if you're not authentic? But
Phony.
Phony and just like
impersonal,
like being like an opportunist. Because if you notice with a lot of commercials in large companies, they ride the trends, like they ride the waves. And, for me as a customer myself, I think, well, really, like, is that really what you care about? Or are you just taking advantage of the fact that that's what our country's dealing with right now? And that is very off-putting to me. So if you're going to write a trend, you know, people are smart enough to know if you're really sincere about it. And I know for me, I think, really, this is the issue everybody cares about this month. Well, why didn't you care about it last month? And why aren't you going to care about it next month?
Yeah.
And so I actually try and be very careful with my marketing, not to ride too many hotspot trends, because I don't think it's authentic at all. And I also personally, just with my type of work, I'm working with people who are vulnerable, elderly, or they're going through a crisis. I also don't want to take advantage of them. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many times, for example, I'll tell you, like when Kobe Bryant died, and he was from Newport here, and a lot of the families affected by that crash were all from here. Well, it would have been very easy for me to start running ads mentioning Kobe Bryant and talking about his estate and talking about these families and what they're going through. And I could have easily said, oh, it's public interest, but I thought that's not right. I don't think that's right. And so I just think that, as entrepreneurs, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so please do be careful about the trends. And again, it goes back to sincerity. And so for me, I don't want to ride those types of trends
Yeah.
at all. And I think in the long run, especially in the service business, you ultimately want to be someone that people trust and respect, and that they will want to turn to you. So be careful about being insincere or being an opportunist when it comes to trends.
Which is so incredibly refreshing to hear, because I think everyone does see that, especially with certain news outlets or multimedia centers where something horrific happens, and just the way they react to it, I'm like, you do kind of get that sense that it's like, I feel like you love this, right? I feel like you're like, oh, marketing gold, and it's like, this is not something that we should exploit for money. So
right
now, on following trends,
yeah.
Don't lie. Do you guys have a bunch of Meyer Law Firm fidget spinners? I mean, did you follow that trend, or
the fidget spinners? No, my kids did go through that trend themselves. No, but I did give it out.
yes.
I did. I didn't give it out through work. I teach at we're Catholic, so I teach the kids. So I did give them fidget spinners, but it did not say Meyer Law Firm on it. Yeah.
was it Father, Son, Holy Ghost?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So Laura,
I think it was. I'm not kidding. I think it was.
You're like, look,
I think it was the Holy Trinity.
Holy Trinity,
yeah.
and when you spin it, it's all one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
I missed
Mark. You just summed up years of theology in one easy example.
I know. I missed the Catholic fidget spinner trend. Yeah.
Forget those big books on it. It's a fidget spinner is what it is.
Easy.
Yeah. Boom.
Yeah.
So Laura, I know, one of the things about your firm is you guys create a client experience. I know pre-COVID especially, but you have your binder sitting behind you and the kind of paper you guys use. And you guys used to have when someone would sign a trust, have a little, I wouldn't say party is the right word, but a little ceremony celebration.
Yeah.
But you created a really good experience. And how did that differentiate you from other firms? I don't know of anybody else that does that kind of stuff.
I'm sure, well, a lot of those things come from, different practice management programs and things like that. So I'm sure other people do portions of that or things. But yeah, the idea is that, we've tried to create a really good client experience, which is something I don't take credit for that. I mean, I have a great team that they all are part of that. But yeah, so we do a lot of that. And before COVID, when things were mainly in person, everything, well, this is what I would say is you want the client experience to be very consistent, and you want to have the systems in place where each person who comes through is going to experience the same thing. That's why, for example, franchises do so well versus independent places that it could be more hit and miss. Is with franchises, they will they will tell you everything down to what your employee wears to how they say, welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order? And you'll hear that. You're not going to drive up to McDonald's and have them be like, hey, what's up? Like, are you hungry? And you're like, so whereas like a mom and pop shop, you might get that, right? And so we have tried to make a very consistent experience. We everything down to when they signed their estate plan, they would get a cake as like a thank you and a celebration that they finally got this in place. Now with COVID, we still have been able to do that experience, but the things that might have changed, which you always have to tweak, right, based on whatever's going on, is now instead of being in person signing, they're signing usually at their home, and then we're sending them a box of chocolates as a thank you. So same idea, little tweak. But that is something that I can't express enough to people because we do spend so much time talking about marketing. But again, you want that consistency when someone does come to you to have that great experience. That's how you're going to get the consistent good reviews, the consistent reputation, all of that. And that's when people will know what to expect going forward.
Which I mean, if you're relying, if 10 people talk about you and they all had the same experience and it was all positive, I mean, those are 10, that's just really good. That is good marketing, right? The consistent experience,
Yes.
That's great marketing. Yeah. I mean, sure. I probably would get 3 estate plans from you just for the cake. I mean,
they were good cakes. I miss those cakes.
So Laura, on marketing, I think it'd be terrible if we didn't bring up your books, right? And what you have done and where people can go find more information about you. So do you have 2 copies of or copy of each of your book right there with you?
I have one of them.
Okay.
So this is the new one with Penguin Random House and Diversion Books, the Family Nest Egg, and it's for parents, and it's how to build long-term wealth and security. What's cool is, I don't know if you guys know this, but Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank actually wrote the cover endorsement for the book. So if Barbara likes it, I think it's approved. I think the rest of us will like it. And it was also endorsed from Jamie Powers, part of the Powers family from JD Power and Associates.
Wow.
But
that's awesome.
Thanks. But what I love about this book, well, I mean, obviously I wrote it, but it's actually a lot of practical, like hands-on advice that families can implement to get their finances in order. So it's not just about paying off debt, but it's also how to build that long-term wealth and security, how to build your star team of players, like working with people like you who can advise people. And Mark, you're in the credits because Mark helped contribute to this book to make sure that all the advice, I was giving is completely approved by a financial advisor. But yeah, it's really cool. And it even includes a 21-day guide to financial security to help people get started on doing all of these things and setting up a budget and talking to advisors and getting all their assets in one place. So all that housekeeping stuff, it takes, we take care of it. And then if you go over to thefamilynestegg.com, you can actually join an online boot camp for the 21 days with all the additional like sheets and resources and budgets and things like that.
Go sign up today, people. It's good stuff.
That was nestegg.com.
Thefamilynestegg.com.
Thefamilynestegg.com. Yes, everyone go check out thefamilynestegg.com. Awesome resources and actionable steps are extremely helpful because you can read a book with a lot of great information, but if you have no path forward, then it's like, well, I guess I just know things now. But
implementing makes a big difference in being able to do that. So that was the point of the book was not just the education, but the implementation.
Yeah. Execution is key. Well, we can wrap up there. A lot of really good information marketing wise. We did want to go into our speed round real quick. Marketing. What are some of your marketing pet peeves that you see that just drive you up the wall?
People marketing based on price and trying to make things the cheapest. Just remember, crap is cheap.
That is absolutely going to be a quote that will get posted online. Crap is cheap. Yes.
I love it.
That is awesome.
Okay. What are one or two things entrepreneurs can start tracking today to make sure that their marketing is actually working? How would you recommend they start doing that?
Before they even go into something, they need to have the goals and expectations of how many people that would actually bring in and why. And that needs to usually be based on like a proven method. And they need to be evaluating if it's working regularly.
Perfect. All right, now off the business related stuff. Next time I am in Newport Beach, best burrito / fish taco joint for me to go visit.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna have to ask my Josh that. He's the burrito. Do I look like I eat burritos all day? No.
Well, you gotta at least know.
Oh,
where does Josh go?
Yeah, where does Josh drag you to?
I don't know, but you know what? We're like sushi people. We like sushi. So
where's the best sushi place?
Okay, well, like Nana Sun here is super good in Newport. We love Nana Sun, and then Sushi on Fire over in Eastside Costa Mesa. Or I mean, Sushi on Fire is in Huntington. That's super good. And then I don't even know the place. It's a sushi place in Eastside Costa Mesa. Everybody here knows it. Super good.
Well, I do also love sushi, so we can shift to sushi.
We can take you guys for sushi when you come.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yes. All right. So last question. This is let this one go a little bit. Hang out with one celebrity for the entire weekend. Who would it be, and why that person? And maybe where would you go? Where would you hang out with them at?
Is this like in a pretend world? Like if I'm single and he's single and we're younger?
Sure. Yes. Let's do that one.
Whatever you want. Considering Josh is not going to listen to this podcast, you can
go for it.
God. I don't know, Mark Wahlberg, but no, I don't know. I wouldn't even know the answer to that question. I'm not like a celebrity person into celebrities. I like hanging out with like the older people who have been through a lot, and we'll just go to coffee with you, and like everything is cool with them because they're over it, and they'll just tell you some like great advice stories.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
is that a boring answer? I'm sorry.
No, not at all.
Okay.
My one of my best friend's great grandmas lived to be 104, and it was one of those things. I mean, basically from 85 on, right? I mean, I just like had thought like, man, she's got to have such a cynical view of like any election cycle, right? I mean, when you hit 100. Just being like, oh my gosh, seriously, you really think this is gonna matter? Like in 4 more years? Yeah, it's just funny perspective.
Yeah. I will tell you real quick because we're in speed round. But when COVID hit and the supermarket was empty, and we were all standing in line like it was a war camp, there was a super elderly, like veteran guy in front of us who was like in his 90s, and he turned to me and he said, "I lived through World War II." He's like, "I was a child in the Great Depression." He goes, "I've never seen anything like this." And I'm like, "Oh, that's not comforting." I wanted him to be like, "We got this." He was like, "I've never seen this." I'm like, "Oh no." Anyway,
like, and my optimism gone. Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my gosh." Well, thank you for your service, and I wish you hadn't said that.
Well, real quick. So where can people find more information about the Meyer Law Firm and just more about you guys online?
So you can go to meyerfirm.com, and certainly if you're in California and you need your estate planning done, we'd love to work with you. Just go to meyerfirm.com, and it's MEIER. And then for the book, you can get the book through any major book retailer, just wherever you like to buy books, you can order it. And then you can also go to thefamilynestegg.com if you want help jumpstarting kind of your finances and getting everything in place.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on. Super awesome hearing your take on marketing. Again, entrepreneurs out there, you can have a family, have a business, and focus on marketing. Just listen to this podcast about 5 or 6 times to pick up all the little nuggets, and you can do it. Real quick, nothing we say can and should be taken as tax, legal, or financial advice. Everything said here is just the opinions of 3 professionals. If anything struck you as something you want to follow up with, please seek professional opinion, professional advice. Thanks so much again, Laura, for being on. Super excited to get this out and to help everyone with their marketing.
Nice.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks for having me on. It was fun chatting with you guys.
Thanks so much.